Dr. Pete, and welcome to Riding the Waves of Life Without the Stress, a recovery program. In this program, we're going to take you through some really important skills and strategies that you need to learn so that you can ride the waves of life without the stress. In the first part of our time, we're going to have a look at the waves of life, and in particular, how to understand the challenging, stressful life events that happen to you, and how you can learn the difference between regular waves or daily hassles, the big waves or challenging situations of change in life, and the tsunamis or tidal waves, and how they can really, cause the risk of what we then move on to call a wipeout. And wipeouts are very much about our stress response, and we're going to spend some time in this program learning how to identify our individual patterns of stress and how to take action so that we don't wipe out when those challenging waves of life hit us. The next part of our time together in this program is going to be about what I call the stress surfer's 4 elements. And just like in nature we have earth, water, fire and wind, so too for the stress surfer we have our mindsets, our emotions, the lifestyle choices we make, and our sense of purpose. And we're going to spend some time on each one of those, applying them to those waves of life that we encounter so that we can use each of those 4 elements to prevent ourselves wiping out. Finally in our program, I'm going to touch on one of my favourite topics, which is the endless summer. And for surfers, that's about living a blissful life, travelling around the world, riding the waves. But equally for us as stress surfers, the endless summer is about staying fit and healthy and on top of those coping skills, managing those 4 elements, preventing those wipeouts, but also about having an on-purpose life strategy. I'm going to introduce some of that life strategy to you as we conclude the program. So join me and let's roll up our sleeves and work hard as we learn how to ride the waves of life without the stress. I'm Dr. Pete, the Stress Surfer, and in this part of our program we're going to take a look at the concept of the waves of life. Waves of life are about the types of events and circumstances that, just like waves, wash up on our shore and can get us stressed and put us at risk of wiping out. In this part of our time, we're going to learn how to recognise the types of events that get us upset and categorise them as either regular waves, which include daily hassles and little things that can get us frustrated, the big waves, which are major events, challenging events in our life that we have to cope with, and the tidal waves or tsunamis, the very big events that completely disrupt our lives. We're also going to learn how to categorise the waves that hit us so that we don't spend too much energy on the small waves, that we don't sweat the small stuff, so to speak. Part 1, the waves of life. What stresses you out? What stresses you out? Think of some things that stress you out. Work, problems with the boss, peers, co-workers or customers. Kids, do they drive you crazy? Do they want too much? Do they have attitude? Relationship, your spouse, your partner, or the lack of spouse or partner. Are you lonely? Do you argue too much? Do you not take time out to enjoy things? Do the reasons that you got together so many years ago seem so distant with all the frustrations now? What about finances? Finances stress people out a lot. Not enough money, bills due too soon. Perhaps your family or others expect too much of you. For the stress surfer, the things that stress us out in life are like waves on the surface of the ocean. Waves are a normal part of life and they come in different sizes. Measuring the size of waves. Research shows us that stressful life events can place us at risk of illness, and some life events create bigger risks than others. Life event scales show that events such as the death of your spouse, a divorce, or other major personal illnesses and injuries will create highest risks of illness, whilst less stressful waves of life like vacations and Christmas create lower risks of illness. For the stress surfer, I divide life events into the following types of waves: regular waves of everyday hassles, big waves of major changes, and tsunamis or tidal waves of life-changing events. As you can see in the wave chart, different life events create different levels of risk in terms of getting stressed out and unwell. The biggest waves of all are divorce, major personal injury or illness, the death of a spouse or very close loved one, and other massive life transitions like finishing work and retirement. In our wave chart, the next size down are the big waves, and that's financial stress, possibly having to sell the house because you can no longer pay your bills, beginning or ending school, college or university, and moving house or changing residence in the same city or surrounds. The smallest waves we have, we're calling them regular waves, and they're the daily hassles of life. The parking tickets, running late, minor domestic arguments with your spouse or kids, holiday planning, Christmas, change in sleeping habits, all of those things are called the regular waves of life. One of the interesting things to stop and ponder is, why measure the size of waves? Sometimes people think that what is stressful for one person may not be stressful for others and vice versa. Research shows us that it is good to look objectively at how big the waves of life that stress us out really are, so as not to sweat the small stuff, so to speak. There really isn't that much point wiping out and having a huge stress reaction to a parking ticket or daily hassles. We need to conserve all our energy so that when a big wave comes, we can manage the situation as best as possible. Exercise 1, measuring your current waves. What I want you to do now is write down 3 things that stress you out. Waves of life that cause you stress, no matter how big or small. Now, I want you to put each wave into one of the following categories using the wave chart that you've just seen as a guide. That first wave you wrote down, is it a regular wave of everyday hassles, a big wave of major challenges, or a tsunami or tidal wave of life-changing events? Go through this exercise with each of the 3 things that you wrote down that stress you out. Now, I'd like you to select a current wave of life you want to focus on and also decide which category it's in. This wave of life will be the guide and reference point as we learn how to ride the waves of life without the stress. Welcome back. How did you go with that exercise of measuring the current waves of your life? I wanted to work through this program with you, so what you'll see is the results of my exercise up on your screen. For the first thing I wrote down, number 1 was just challenging and busy family schedules, and I ticked regular wave because that happens a lot. The second one I wrote down was traffic jams, and as you can see again, I ticked a regular wave. The third one I wrote down was missing my kids. I share the care of my children, and when they're not around, I miss them. When I ticked which type of wave that was, I actually ticked big wave because it's quite a change and adjustment for me being in that arrangement. I've also written down missing the kids as the challenging wave of life that I want to focus on through the course of this program.